Today, we're going to make a taco pizza. Now, this is much like other recipes that we've done on this channel, inspired by Casey's. This is a fantastic pizza. It's got beans and salsa, it's got cheese, it's got taco meat, it's got lettuce and tomato and chips. It is so good, and I guarantee you're going to like it. Let's take a look. Alright, so to make this taco pizza, you're going to need just a handful of different ingredients, but it's all going to be worth the effort. So we're going to start off first and foremost with some pizza dough. Of course, we have our homemade pizza dough here. Next thing we're going to need is we're going to be doing for the sauce base. It's going to be a combination of refried beans and salsa. So for making the refried beans, we're going to need a can of pinto beans. We're also going to make our own homemade salsa, although you actually can skip this if you just want. You can just do your own, or you can get whatever your favorite pre-made salsa is, but I'm going to make some simple homemade salsa, so need a can of rotel tomatoes. Going to need a little bit of onion. We'll also be using this as part of the pinto bean, or the refried beans. We're also going to need some garlic cloves, some fresh cilantro, and that's basically all we need for the salsa is just rotel, garlic cloves, fresh cilantro, and some onion. For the pinto beans, to make them into refried beans, we of course need the beans themselves, some of that onion, then we're going to use some garlic powder, some ground cumin, and some chili powder. Now, this is what you're going to need just to start off, but then we're also going to go ahead and we're going to be making homemade taco meat. For that homemade taco meat, we're of course going to need some ground beef, using a full pound here, although we're only going to use probably about a quarter to half of this for the pizza itself. And then for the seasonings, we're going to need, of course, some ground cumin, some chili powder, some granulated onion, some granulated garlic, and then both some salt and some black pepper. Now, of course, with making taco meat, you can actually just use the taco seasoning that's pre-made. You can use the Taco Bell taco seasoning. Anything like that is going to work just fine. For our purposes, we want to make it more customizable than all of that, so we're going to go ahead and make it ourselves. Now, of course, for the rest of the stuff you're going to be putting on top of the pizza, we are, of course, going to need some mozzarella cheese. This is actually a full pound. We're only doing about half that because we're making two separate pizzas, but we'll use some mozzarella cheese. Of course, the taco meat will go on top of that. Then after it bakes, we'll also be adding some ground up nacho cheese chips, whatever brand you prefer. It doesn't have to be nacho cheese. It could just be plain if you prefer that. I contemplated actually making my own chips, but I just decided, you know what, I'm going to keep it simple, use the prefab ones. And then we're also going to have some lettuce that's going to get chopped up and go on top after everything's done cooking, and some fresh tomato. And all of that is going to come together nicely. This is going to make a fantastic pizza. So let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, we're going to go ahead and get the beans and the salsa made up. All right, so we're going to need the onion cut first of all, because we're going to be using a portion of that both for the salsa and for refried beans. We're going to do about a quarter of an onion for the refried beans. And because of the fact that we already are going to have a good amount of onion in the refried beans, and the beans and the salsa are going to get mixed together, we're not going to worry about adding any additional onion to the salsa. There will be plenty just in the beans itself. All right, now if you have previously visited my recipe before on how to make homemade refried beans, this is going to seem very familiar, but we'll go ahead and review it just in case. So First thing you're going to need is some kind of fat. In this case, we're going to use some avocado oil. We're going to put in roughly about a teaspoon of avocado oil. We don't need very much since we're only doing a single can of beans. But get that warmed up, spread around the pan a bit. All right, and then to that avocado oil, we're going to add our quarter of a yellow onion. We'll get that sauteed a bit just until the onion is softened. Roughly about 2 to 3 minutes. All right, then to that onion, we're going to add a little bit of granulated garlic, roughly about 1 teaspoon. We'll add roughly about a tablespoon of chili powder. About 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cumin. And we'll saute that for about 30 seconds. And then we'll go ahead and add in our can of pinto beans, drained and rinsed. And into that, we'll add about half a can of water. Actually, probably more like about a quarter of a can of water is a bit better in this case. Don't want to have too much water, just enough to where it adds some moisture to the beans themselves. And then we'll go ahead and let that simmer. Get that up to a boil and let it simmer for about 8 minutes. While our beans are simmering, we're going to go ahead and add 1 can of Rotel undrained to a blender. Along with that, we're going to add about 4 cloves of garlic, which I use some frozen ones. And then we're also going to add some fresh cilantro, which we'll just add kind of like a small handful. Not too much, but we want to make sure that there's enough to give it some good flavor, stems and all, since all of it's going to be pureed down very nicely. And then we will cover it up and puree. Alright, and now that salsa is all done. Looks like there's a couple chunks of cilantro on the side there, but otherwise it's looking good. That's about what it should look like in this case. And as soon as the beans are ready, we'll go ahead and add those to the blender. All right, so our beans are all ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and add those directly to the salsa in the blender. We'll go ahead and add just a little bit of salt. We're gonna add roughly about half a teaspoon. Just enough to give it a little bit of salt. And we'll cover that up and puree. All right. Take a look at that. Get that nice texture. It's a good blend of the salsa and the beans. We'll do a quick taste. And yeah, that's basically perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. So now we'll go ahead and get the taco meat made up, and then we'll be ready to assemble our pizza. All right, so now we're in a medium skillet. We're gonna go ahead and get our ground beef cooked on high heat. Now, depending on the fat content of the meat you're using, if you're using something like 80-20, then you will, you can probably cook it up all the way before, or you can brown the meat completely before you start adding seasoning. If you're using something lower in fat, like 85-15 or 90-10, things like that, then you will probably want to add your seasoning here. Because of the fact that we are using about 85-15, we're going to go ahead and start adding our seasoning now. So we'll add roughly about 2 tablespoons of chili powder. We'll do about roughly a tablespoon of garlic powder. A tablespoon of onion powder. Roughly about a 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt. I recommend starting with 1 and just seeing if that's salty enough for you before you add more. And then we'll be doing roughly about a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin to start, and we can always add more later if we need to. And then finally, we're going to add a little bit of black pepper. Really going to do roughly about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And then we mix. Now this is another one of those situations where it's going to be more or less seasoned to taste, but usually this is roughly about how much you need for a full pound of ground beef in order to get the seasoning properly done. Alright, we'll do a quick taste test here, see how it came out. It's just about right. I think it's going to need a bit more of the chili powder. So we'll add probably about another tablespoon of that. Then roughly about another 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. And another 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And that should be about where it needs to be. Yep, that's pretty much perfect. So now everything's ready. We're gonna go ahead and get the pizza assembled. All right, so we'll go ahead and, as usual, sprinkle down some cornmeal. Help keep the dough from sticking to the pan. Grab our pizza dough, start getting that hand stretched out. Alright, now we got it sufficiently stretched out. We're going to go ahead and add our bean salsa mixture. We'll do roughly about 1/2 cup of that mixture. Start with that. I know this doesn't look very appetizing, but trust me, it's very, very good. All right, and then we're going to top that with about 227 grams or 8 ounces of mozzarella cheese. And finally, we'll add about 1/2 of the taco meat that we prepared. All right, and then we'll go ahead and we'll put that in a 375-degree oven for about 15 minutes, and then we will add the rest of the toppings. That's in the oven. We'll go ahead and get our lettuce and tomatoes chopped up. In this case, I'm using romaine lettuce, but you can obviously use iceberg or whatever kind of lettuce you like. The main thing is that you're not cooking the lettuce and the tomato. You're just adding them after it's all completed. All right, pizza's out of the oven, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put on our remaining toppings. Starting with our nacho cheese chips, we're just going to grab a handful here. Break those up and just put them on top of the pizza. And we're going to add some cheddar cheese, doing roughly about 2 ounces on top of here. And then we'll add our tomatoes. And finally, our lettuce.
Look at that. You got the bean and salsa mixture for the base, and you got cheese, taco meat, and chips, and cheddar cheese, and lettuce and tomato. And we'll top it with some taco sauce and do the taste test.
Obviously, you can do whatever kind of taco sauce you like. We typically, at least when we have it available, we like doing the Casey's taco sauce because it's, even though it's mild, go ahead. It's really, really good.
Oh my gosh. So good. I mean, it just tastes like a taco on a pizza, but the fresh ingredients on top just add a lot to it. Taco sauce, everything. So good.
Let's start with the taco sauce. Put plenty of it on there. This is like the only situation where I will use a mild taco sauce. There's something special. I'm telling you, it's just something really special. I can't express it, but it's just got so many different flavors here, and it's just fantastic. It's so incredible. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like if you liked this video, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends, and stay tuned for more recipes that, while not necessarily authentic, are always delicious. Today, we're gonna make a taco pizza. Now, this is another one of those pizzas that is inspired by Casey's, but homemade and so much better. This thing is loaded with beans and salsa, with cheese, with meat, and other taco stuff. And that was garbage. Today, we're gonna make taco pizza. And this is 2 tablespoons of taco seasoning, or I'm sorry,